Hello, this is Stephanie Zimbalist, and you're listening to 80s TV Ladies. I don't even know their real names.
80s TV ladies, so sexy and so pretty. 80s TV ladies, living out into the city. 80s TV ladies, often treated kind of working hard for the money in a man's world. 80s TV ladies.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon. It's time for part 2 of our interview with Stephanie Zimbalist. And we think you're going to enjoy it just as much as you did part 1.
But first, we're going to start with some fan feedback because there's some questions that might come up later. Thank you guys so much for contacting us and sending us your emails and your comments and your ratings and reviews. It really means a lot to us, and we love hearing from you. I want to shout out Leah B., and she says, just listen to the 2nd and 3rd Scarecrow Mrs. King episodes, and you may have already figured this out, but Scarecrow Mrs. King and Remington Steele both shot in Europe due to the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics being in town, and they needed to shoot those early season episodes. That is true. We figure it out a few episodes after. It takes us a while, but thank you very much for your comment.
Thank you, Leah. Love hearing from you. Hope you are continuing to enjoy the podcast. Next up is Kristen, who says, thank you so much for the wonderful episodes on Remington Steele. I missed the show terribly. Even after all these years, I remembered that Stephanie Zimbalist and Robin Bernheim wrote Steele in the Chips. So when I came across your podcast, I was thrilled that you were going to interview Robin Bernheim. And now to learn that you will chat with Stephanie Zimbalist as well, I can't wait. I'd love to hear more about what Stephanie did to shape the character of Laura Holt, and especially her efforts to keep Laura Holt as a strong female lead character. I still remember where I was when I saw the first episode, a senior in high school, and thinking, oh my God, finally a female character that I can relate to, am inspired by. Thank you again. Thank you so much, Kristen. We both feel the same way about Remington Steele, and I think you'll enjoy what Stephanie Zimbalist has to say in this episode.
And on Apple Podcast, from Worst App Ever, 0 out of 10, we got this review. Thank you so much for your podcast. I miss Remington Steele, and it was so wonderful to hear such nice things said about the cast. We'll keep listening because we're going to keep talking about Remington Steele for a few more episodes. Thank you, Worst App Ever, 0 out of 10.
So happy to hear that so many are enjoying our episodes.
And oh my gosh, from Dakota, we got this question. I am wondering if Stephanie Zimbalist still keeps in touch with Pierce Brosnan. Thank you, Dakota. Thank you for reaching out to us on 80s TV Ladies. Stay tuned and let's see if we can find out. We have so much to talk about.
I know.
Oh, I do want to go back to working with your dad on Remington Steele. And that had to be amazing and cool, but also weird.
It was amazing and cool, but I do have to tell you about, it just flopped in my head. I have to tell you about, after Remington, we were doing the Night of the Iguana. Alec Baldwin, who I had worked with, we did a movie of the week called 1984 Love on the Run. It was for NBC. We've been friends ever since. We don't necessarily agree on how the world should be run at this point. But by the way, when we met back in 1984, he was about to leave. He was a regular on Knots Landing at the time.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And he was about to leave the business because he was so passionate about politics that he was going to go and run for office back then. He didn't, but he was going to. I mention it because we've always been, oh, gee, you're working at Williamstown. Can you help me get in? Yeah, let me just make a call. So I made a call, and then he was in Williamstown, blah, blah, blah. So he calls me and he says, I'm doing Night of the Iguana. I'm doing a reading down at NOLA, down at the Tennessee Williams Literary Festival. I'm doing it with Elizabeth Ashley. Will you do it with us? I said, sure. So a couple of friends from a theater I work at here saw the production, and they said, oh my God, she was great as Hannah Jelks. So it ended up that we got this production of Night of the Iguana, and they asked my dad to play Nano, which is my father. in this lovely production of Night of the Iguana that we did in Ventura, and then we took it up to Winnipeg, Manitoba. Well, when we were first, working through the kinks, shall we say, my pop was in an antique wheelchair, and there was a ramp that had a high grade, and the ramp goes off stage, down this high grade, down to stage audience right, and disappears. Well, we're in tech. I think there was an audience. It was actually, we were in tech, and I hadn't put the lock properly on this wheelchair, and it was facing backwards, I think. No, it wasn't backwards. No, it was facing frontwards, thank God. So I go off stage right, and I hear this,
Oh.
and it's my father going down this ramp alone, unguided, and crashing at the bottom of this thing. And the audience, oh my God! And my pop, being the professional that he was in his late 70s then, early 80s, popped up just like nothing had happened, popped up, dusted his pants off, said, well, that was fun. He walks back up the ramp. That's my father. That's my dad. Oh my God. But he was as you can see, he was very athletic also. It was such a delight to work with him on Remington. It was such a delight to work with him on Remington that when Daddy died, and I did a lot of it, I did the service. My brother said, you do it all. Oh, thanks, Skip. Thanks. You do the whole thing. So I did the first memorial. I did the service. I did the second memorial, and they're big productions. They're huge productions with help from many wonderful people that helped me with this. But anyway, when we did the one at the Sportsman's Lodge in LA, I invited Pierce because I thought that he would enjoy it. Well, not only did Pierce show up, he got the date wrong, and he showed up a week before the event. He arrived looking apparently dazzling in his suit. And the people of the desk said, well, Mr. Brosnan, it's so nice to see you, but you're a week early. Well, you'd think and he was coming from a great distance. He lives in a beautiful part of LA. And so you'd think that would put him off on showing up on the date. It didn't. He shows up on the date, and he was such a delight and had so many lovely stories about Daddy and me. And I mention this because, Pierce didn't have the best relations with his own father. And those episodes of working with Daddy, he loved my dad. He loved my dad. Daddy enjoyed him immensely, but Pierce really thought of Daddy as a real father figure. So it meant it was a lovely closing the door on that lovely connection that he had with Daddy. And I was very touched that he made the effort twice, not once, but twice.
That's so awesome. How did it come about, though, that your dad came onto the show in the first place?
Well, Daddy was a big star. I don't know if you knew, but he was very big star.
Oh, yes.
Daddy was the highest paid actor on television at one point. He did, FBI was 9 years, and 77 was actually 8. And in those days, in 77, you got 50 cents, you got nothing at all. Yeah. But he was a very big deal. He did about at least 40 big feature films, mostly for Warner Brothers, because you were under contract then. Not all of them, but a lot of them were Warner's. And so Michael always had it in mind to have, I was Jimmy Stewart's last leading lady. We did a movie called The Magic of Lassie, and Jimmy loved me and I loved him. I'm not going to brag on myself on what he said about me. I'm not going to do that. I won't be tacky like that. But I did tell Michael how much Jimmy loved me. So Michael wrote a part for Jimmy, and Jimmy was all set to do it. He said, absolutely, I'm going to come and guest star on Remington Steele. And he had some kind of conflict at the very last minute. And Andy Duggan took the role. And the irony is that episode, and you guys will remember it, We shot it out on Route 126. We shot it at this little pilot. What do you call it? It's not a base, but where they have planes,
Like an Air Force.
It's a little funny airplane. It's a funny airport, and we were actually shooting it on the day of the Challenger disaster.
Oh
my gosh.
Wow.
And that was the show that Jimmy was going to do.
Is that the one where there's a plane crash that you see?
Probably.
At lower seats? Yeah, okay.
Probably. Yeah.
The radio, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, so Michael always had it in mind to bring, you saw the show. I mean, he brought
on everybody.
People, like everybody. I mean, just Lloyd Nolan and all these fabulous actresses. And it was just great. We were so lucky. So he brought Daniel Chalmers on, and of course, Daniel Chalmers ends up being Remington Steele's father at the end.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. For those of you that haven't seen it.
That's all right. It is a spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert from 40 years ago.
Yeah.
The funniest thing, though, our favorite time. So my mother on the show was
Beverly Garland.
Beverly Garland, who is delightful. Well, Daddy and I had this ridiculous scene, which was a dance scene. It was a waltzing scene. And we had this little martinet guy that was trying to get us to do the words on the turn, on the shot, the same thing, just like the gal when I did Tea at 5. You turn on this word and then you go over here and then this camera picks you up and then you turn here. So Daddy and I, Daddy was actually invited by his teacher at the neighborhood playhouse to join her company. He was that good a dancer. And that teacher was Martha Graham.
Oh,
wow.
Well, there you go.
And he didn't do it because his mother said, I don't want she didn't want that. She didn't want her son to be she wanted her son to be a doctor or a lawyer or something, or an engineer. She wanted him to be an engineer. Anyway, but Daddy, he could move. He was a very good dancer, but I'm a really good dancer, but not when somebody is telling me, move, do this, do that, do this, do that. So Daddy and I, we start we've got in our ears, we've got the earbuds, just like our resident in the White House. We've got these things in our ears telling us what to do. We've got the music in our ears. So when we would listen to the music, it would make us type like this because it was and they said, stop, 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 stop. You're sounding like a waltz. We said, well, it's hard to listen to the rhythm of the waltz and try to say the lines. We started, when did you first meet Mr. Steele? Well, it got to the point that we couldn't keep a straight face. And because the little martinet that was telling us what to do got madder and madder, and that made Daddy and I laugh more and more until finally we couldn't look at each other while we're trying to dance, and we're just biting our lip. This stupid thing took forever, but that was one of our favorite memories, was trying to do that waltz scene.
Oh my God. All right. Now I got to go back and watch and see if I can catch you guys breaking.
And then yeah, it was a fun show. It was such a silly show. It was fun. It was great fun. And it taught me a lot. I mean, there was one episode where I had to be drunk. I was terrified of that. I just was terrified of that. And I think it was my dad that said the easiest way to play a drunk, it'll work every time. You have to try to be sober. I said, really? He said, it's a piece of cake. That's all you have to do. Just try to be sober. I said, okay. And he was right. And I was really good in that episode, but you got to do fun things like that,
I was going to say, I also appreciated that, you got kind of dirty and beat up a lot. Your hair got blown out. You it felt so game. Laura Holt was so game.
Yeah.
And you got to get angry.
Yeah.
And that, again, something you didn't see a lot of.
Yeah.
Is a woman advocating for themselves and getting angry when people weren't doing what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
That didn't happen on network television.
That's right.
People got angry in soap opera way, but getting angry because you're not doing what your job, or you're not doing what you need to do in our relationship, that was so unusual. It was powerful.
Yeah. We also, I don't think Pierce and I ever patted. Well, at one point we sort of patted ourselves on the back. It was, we're in the 4th season or something. And there was really, if it was just the two of us, there was absolutely no need really to direct us. We knew where to go. We knew where the money shots were. We knew where we needed to land. We knew the rhythm. We knew how to do everything. And the directors were always delighted because it was a well-oiled machine that we gave them. And we always had fun to have somebody new join us, a guest person. I remember there was an actor named Paul Reiser. Do you remember Paul Reiser?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Well, for some reason, I thought he was a stitch. Pierce could not keep a straight face with him. He could not. He couldn't. The second Paul started to rehearse, Pierce was on the floor. He could not stop laughing. He just simply was ridiculous. He could not stop. And we really had to sort of wait for Pierce to go. He just could not stop laughing. We had a lot of fun with people like that were just really pistols,
Louie Anderson.
Louie Anderson, oh my God. See, I had a lot I wrote to Pierce when Louie died, and because I had to do all those scenes where Louie was on the horse, and I don't think Pierce was there when Louie was on the horse.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It was just, Louie was great to me. I went to his comedy act after that. He invited me many times. He was a doll. He was very, very sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very, again, a standout episode because it was so silly, but it also was so charming. The cast was always so charming.
Yeah. Thank you, Molly. Thank you,
Yes.
Molly LaPata, for those wonderful people. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious because you've been working for a while, and how do you see things have changed or not for women in television, both on stage, both in sort of in front of the camera and behind the scenes?
Well, I can only go with what I have to go by now. The last time I was, first of all, I'll give Dan Roebuck a big pat here. If I don't think somebody can do something, I say they can't do it. They're not very good at it. Dan Roebuck is a hugely gifted director. He's not only a hugely gifted director, but he's a really good writer. He's really, really good. And he's also good in this light material. I don't know if you know, Susan, he's got this company. He and his wife, Tammy, have this company called A Channel of Peace. And it's faith-based family movies. That sounds really boring. They're not. They're not at all boring because Danny has this great sense of humor.
He's got a wonderful sense of humor.
He's just delightful to work with, so effortless to work with. So when I worked with him, I did the one, he didn't direct the one that I did with Sally Kellerman. That was pretty great. I had a lovely scene with Dear Sally, and that was 2014. That was the one that was called His Neighbor Phil. And now it's called A Timeless Love. But working with Danny, he's a champ. And so the only experience that I have in front of the camera for quite a while is Danny. And A, I thought, God, he really knows what he's doing. And B, and by the way, the crew said, you really know how to do this. I said, well, this is what I used to do. So I know this stuff a lot. And our DP would say, but you're really good at this. I said, well, thanks. This is my territory. This is what I know. And there's a lot that it takes to learn. And you either know it or you don't. Robin says to me, you should be directing. So I don't want to direct. I don't want to direct. I have no interest in going, when the guy gets up and gets his Oscar for Shine, let's say, it only took 9 years preparation. That's fine. Yeah, good. It's one of my favorite films, by the way. I don't know if you've seen it. Shine. Do you remember that film?
I do remember that.
Oh my God.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah. He said, I think it was 9 years it took him to make it. Yeah, just what I want to do. As far as the theater, my theater stuff is out in the boonies a bit, but new plays, I've done new plays, which is always exciting.
Now, talk about taking 9 years.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know. Who knows? The only unfortunate part is that you can't act in a closet. So you can't even do a reading in a closet. So this actually, what we're doing here, as you can imagine, because I'm talking so much, it's a bit of a performance, right?
Yes.
So this is sort of what I do too, which is my thoughts about where to live. Do I want to live in the slow lane always? Do I want to really live on a hilltop, dealing with farmers? Who am I going to talk to? Not that I don't love farmers. I love them. They're great. But I was sort of made to sort of babble, I guess, and talk and get up and do things. So
Perform.
We'll see where it all ends up. Yeah.
Well, and so I'm going to swing right back to Remington. Let's talk about the end of the show and then the re-end of the show. The show gets canceled at the end of season 4. Did you know that was coming? And then it gets brought back.
Yeah, let me think now. I'm trying to think because it got canceled. I was working at Williamstown, and so I got RoboCop. Show is canceled. I get cast as the lead in RoboCop. And then while I'm there doing Barbarians by Gorky or Summer and Smoke with Chris Reeve and Annie Reinke, I find out I have to go back to Remington because we're picked up again, because all the audience complained and they said, we don't want this show to be canceled. And I think it was only the second show in the history of shows that they ever brought it back because the audience said we insist on it coming back. I was fine about it. I had to give up. Not only did I have to give up an A picture, but my wardrobe, if you ask Erica Phillips, my wardrobe was sitting at Sony for a long time. It was already made. And Pierce never had Bond when he made a big stink and said, take this job and shove it. He didn't have the job. I did have a job. And I gave it up. I said, I got to give it up. We got to go back because the only reason they want me for things is because I did this show. And so I was forever grateful for Remington because after Remington came a slew of very interesting parts, very interesting things that I never would have gotten to do if I didn't have the platform. Isn't that a lovely word? But the platform of Remington. So nobody would have cared if I remember Tommy saying, I've taken this show out 3 or 4 times on the road. We've never had numbers like this. It must have to do with you. So that's what he said. He didn't have to say that, but he did say it. He said, it's the magic of being on television. I said, yeah, it is.
We were talking about that. Network television meant something very different. Like there's so many platforms. There's so many streaming channels. There's a lot of content. It's really all interesting content. It's very exciting to have this much opportunity to create interesting stories. But at the same time, you can't keep up with them. The but is...
Here's the but. Here's the but related to what you were just going to say. How many avenues were there then? There were network television. There were a couple of PBS channels. People weren't making series on PBS channels. So there was ABC, NBC, and CBS. And so if you had a market share on one of your shows, do you know the numbers we had? I mean, it was ridiculous, the numbers we had.
Yeah.
I would walk down the street after a movie of the week. If I were in New York, I'd get stopped by 10 people on the block. Oh, I saw your show last night. Oh, it was great. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And it would happen everywhere I went. People would stop me because people watched television. They don't watch it anymore.
Well, they watched you too, I have to say. As a personal fan,
Yeah.
you really were outstanding, and that's why people were drawn to you. And it was such an unusual role for the time.
And, thank you. And I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know it. I mean, I remember I was at my friend Judy, and she said, you got to go sign some autographs because I wanted to make some money for Michael. He was in bad straits, and I was doing Tea at 5, and we thought it would bring in audience for Tea at 5 in Burbank. So I went to one of these things where you sign it, you sit down there and you sign autographs. And there at the autograph signing, besides Celeste Holm, which was kind of a thrill, I have to say,
Nice.
there was Ryan O'Neal. And I go up to Ryan's table and I say, hello, Mr. O'Neal. I don't think you know me, but my name is Stephanie. And he said, I had such a crush on you. I said, you did? I can't tell you how many people I've met that have said that. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't have time to breathe. I worked 80 hours a week. I would get home. I'd be the first in my chair with Dorothy Fox, who I still visit, who's my hairdresser from Remington. I still visit her once a week in the assisted living. I go and see her once a week. She's 92, coming up 92. And I'd get in her chair at 5:30 in the morning, and we wouldn't get out of the last shot until 11:30 at night. And then I'd have to get up and be in the chair at 5:30 in the morning. And I didn't get a day off until my 4th season of Remington.
Wow.
4th season of Remington, I got my first day off. So I didn't have time to notice my impact on the world. I didn't have time. I didn't know. I had no idea. I remember Pierce said, what did he say? He said, we were shooting in like Santa Monica or something. He said, why didn't you have a fancy, why didn't you get one of these cars? Why didn't you have a Corvette or a Jaguar? What were you driving around that city? I said, because I don't care about cars. It's not my thing. I just don't care about cars. But I don't care about fancy houses. I don't care about any of that stuff. And I also never, ever believed that the income, which wasn't astonishing, the way by today's standards, it was not. I mean, it really wasn't. But I never believed that it would last. So I wasn't going to spend it. I said, you don't spend this money just because you're getting it today. You don't do that. Because when I was at Juilliard, they didn't teach us anything. Nothing like that. We're going, blah, 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 nothing. We didn't know anything about that. And it's very important that we know that. But I do want to swing back, Susan, and talk to you about Remington and say, try not to get emotional because it's stupid, but I would have had a good journeyman career without it. Because I was starting down that road. I was moving very nicely along into interesting parts in features. I did, in fact, my 2 big features were before Remington. The Awakening with Charlton Heston and The Magic of Lassie with Jimmy Stewart were before Remington. I would have had an interesting career, but Remington made me a household word, household name, and it was a good body of work. It was nothing that I was ever ashamed of. It was always, I did the best I could do. And it was enough. So I was very grateful to have it. I'm very grateful for my solvency, incredibly grateful for how long that remains to have some kind of solvency. And I'm grateful for the opportunity it gave me to take the time to be better. Because that's what I did with it. I went to the theater and I took the time to get better.
That is amazing. And thank you for sharing that with us. You changed people's lives. You inspired so many women to recognize that they could be themselves and sort of pick their own journey.
Yeah.
And that show resonates, and it resonates for a reason. So we have a little segment on the show called 90s TV Babies.
Yeah.
That's a younger generation that looks at these shows, and it's pretty amazing when they look at these shows how much they get from them.
Yeah.
Because I think they're going to look at them and start laughing, but they really appreciate them and I think it gives them an insight into what the 80s was, but also they sort of appreciate what these shows were trying to do, and they really get them. A little bit more than I thought they would.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Sharon and I both been surprised when they're like, "Oh my God, it's just like this, and this here, and then the hair."
Well, also the fact that they can binge, that adds a lot to it, because then they get a real I've never binged anything, but they get a real sense of what the statement of the show was by binging it.
Yeah. Streaming has revived some of these older shows that were really resonant at the time and now carry a new resonance that I think is reminding people. It's so interesting because it feels like the way that Remington Steele is giving nods to older movies in the show, which I love, was another part of the show that I loved. I would literally try to kind of write those down and then go find those movies, which were hard to find.
Good.
And But as a person that was starting to love movies and television, it was like, oh, I better go check out, Casablanca. And I see a lot of references to the Remington Steeles of the day and stuff in modern television in particular. I think there are. And that's why you keep hearing like, oh, Remington's going to be revised. Oh, or there's going to be but I it's one of the reasons we keep looking back at our old shows and movies and stuff. And I think there is value in rebooting stuff. I think there is, I like new stuff. I develop new stuff.
Yeah.
But I think there is something in reimagining sort of these stories that have resonance as well. Because I like all culture.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to have to take a break here.
I think that's a great idea. Stay tuned for more of our interview.
We'll be right back. All right, and we're back.
Welcome back to part 2 of our interview. This is 80s TV Ladies.
It's funny. I when we did, I guess, what was it? I don't know what it's called, where you go in a studio and you comment and they put that in the DVD.
Oh,
The
yes,
DVD extra
commentaries.
special, the
Yes.
commentaries.
There you go,
Yeah.
That's about the only time that I've seen Remington since we did it. And the main reason is simply, first of all, I remember exactly how I shot every scene. It's sort of like a golfer.
Mm-hmm.
You ask Jack Nicklaus about, 1984 and the 15th hole at Pebble, and he'll know exactly the shots that he hit. That's just the way it is. And same, Djokovic knows every single, it's just, and actors are the same. Oh, I remember we put the camera there and and I haven't watched it for one simple reason, and it's simply vanity. I don't really want to go back and look at what I looked like when I was 25 to 30. It'll just depress me as all get out. And I look pretty good now. I swim about six miles a week. I don't look like a child. I haven't had a lot of, scaffolding done on my face. So I haven't done that, but I still am a qualified member of the human race.
Yes.
But it'll just depress me to go look and see who cares what I looked like when I was 25 to 30? Fine. That's good.
I hope you do get a chance to relook at, because you and Mr. Brosnan are so completely adorable together.
Yes.
And the commentary you did with Michael Gleason for the episode you wrote was fantastic.
Good.
So fantastic.
Oh, good.
The specials on the behind the scenes on the DVDs has been really, really fun to dive into. So I really appreciate that.
Okay.
And I was just saying that's one of the challenges of streaming is you don't have those special features. Like I appreciate that as a person that is interested in how things get made and is interested in movies and television and theater. I really appreciate those. I missed the Criterion collection.
Yeah.
So it's why I recommend you get the DVDs of Remington Steele instead of trying to stream it. Also, in streaming, they tend to cut off your head.
I'll tell you what I have, Susan. I still have the Betamaxes.
Oh, wow.
That I originally recorded my show on. And I'll tell you why. Because I was prescient enough to record one commercial in between each of the breaks. Not because I felt it needed it, but it did because the shows were written to have commercials.
Mm-hmm.
So it's helpful to have the break. But I put the commercial in because I always wanted to know what the flavor of the world was when we were doing it. So I would pick one commercial and put it in the break. And I still have all of those Betamaxes that are rotting. I haven't had them transferred yet, but I have all of them. How many are there? 80?
Yeah.
No, 99, 95, something like that.
You may have been very prescient. It's still up in the air. What is the best archival? And Betamax is a pretty good archival medium, believe it or not.
Yeah, I know.
So they may not be rotting.
Good. Let's hope so. Let's hope not.
And I haven't revisited them for a while, I'll admit, but the times that I have put in a VHS tape of something that I had recorded, and the commercials are like this time capsule.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, it's really kind of fun and astonishing and scary all at the same time to see what was in commercials at that time and how things were sold at that time as opposed to now.
That's right.
It's fascinating. So
There's three other things why Remington is terribly important right now. One, it captures what Los Angeles looked like in that time.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
So beautifully.
Recorded everywhere. We went everywhere, and you'll see mountains that you don't see anymore. You'll see houses. You don't see those anymore. You'll see a whole lot. You'll see a whole lot. In fact, a lot of people that would watch Remington are probably looking at the background going, oh my God, look at that. That's one reason. Another, it was so smart of Gleason not to want us in contemporary clothes.
Mm-hmm.
We were picked to be in classic attire, whether it was Ron Talsky, our designer, whoever it was. Paula Jakaris was our first lady, I think, and then Ron took over, and he was great. There's a sad death there. It was very sad. He was a fabulous man. He put, what's her name in the T-shirt in Geneviève Bujold, was that? Who was in what's the big movie, and she was wearing a wet T-shirt?
Oh, The Deep.
The Deep.
That was Jacqueline Bisset.
Oh,
Bisset.
right.
He put Jackie Bisset in the T-shirt.
Brilliance.
He didn't put me in a T-shirt in the Deep. Right. We were dressed so classically so that it would never look dated.
Yes.
So we were dated right away. So that was very important. And the third element that is terribly important, especially where our world is today, we don't have a funny bone anymore. We don't have a sense of lightness. We can't laugh at ourselves and each other. We need that. We need that button where we can laugh at ourselves. We need that button where we can laugh at each other. And that's what Remington did. It raised us those 3 inches off the ground so that we could laugh.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where we got the comments like the blood isn't real on Remington Steele. And that was true. That's what we used to say. And, you didn't quake at a gun that was pointed at you the way that you do in a real drama. That's not how the gun was treated. It was just a different story because we weren't quite real. Well, all of those elements make it a show that is well worth revisiting today.
Yeah, the action comedy has kind of left television.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's movies that do it, but and I think you're right. I think it's lovely to have that.
Yeah.
It's lovely to be able to be like, oh, it's fun to be a spy and a mom, like for Scarecrow, Mrs. King, and Remington Steele and Moonlighting.
Yeah.
They had a lot of wink in them, and it was lovely to experience that lightness.
We had, I mean, with the way we are with divisiveness, I would never be cast today as Remington. I wouldn't be. But I was thinking that somebody said we were talking some theater friends. It was Lucy Arnaz and another friend of mine that I did a tour with. And I said, but you have to understand, in the theater, especially the theater, we're a tribe. And also in the film and television business, we're a tribe as well. And what the tribe applauds is excellence. The tribe, whether the tribe is an actor, a director, a producer, a playwright, we applaud excellence. And it doesn't matter whether that person is gay, is straight, is, what side of the fence. Man, if they can deliver in any form, it doesn't, we just leap to our feet and support. It's just the nature of what we do. And it's funny because that is the way, the internal feeling of the business, whether it's the movie business or the theater business, that is definitely true. I examine through the eyes of excellence. If it's excellent, it deserves to win, period. Anyway, that's my boat.
The excellence of theater. One of my favorite things is in the Santa Barbara. We're walking by the theater. It's for the Santa Barbara Symphony.
Yeah.
And it was closed and boarded up. Mm-hmm. But there's this poster that said, "The pursuit of excellence continues." Yeah. And we're like, really? Like, that's your poster? Like, you haven't gotten there, but you're going to keep going?
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah. Well, if I like a movie, there's so many movies that I've seen about 7 times. Mm-hmm. I won't go see a whole swath of movies just for fun. If I find one that's just absolutely dead on superb. Well, guess what? It's better every time I see it. It's better.
Yeah.
I saw Shine that many times. I saw, I'll probably see Denzel again in Macbeth. He was just knockout great in that film. When Melina was doing The Father, not the movie that Tony Hopkins did. Sorry, I don't have many things to say about that. But I do have, when Melina did the play, I had to go back to the Pasadena Playhouse. I had to go see it again.
Yeah.
I think I saw it 3 times. I said, you're just too good.
I love watching him. Red was that for me,
Yeah.
for him. I just watched him the whole time. It was
I remember
really,
that. Yeah,
really resonant.
that's right.
Yeah, I love rewatching things. Just as an aside, I happened to come upon a movie on HBO sometime in the last couple of days called Return to Me. It was written and directed by Bonnie Hunt, and I love this movie.
Wow.
And it's about a woman who has a heart transplant, and then meets a guy, falls in love, and realizes that she has the heart of his deceased wife.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Okay, that sounds like a TV movie for sure.
But it also has, she was raised by her 2 grandfathers who were played by Carol O'Connor.
Oh, come on.
And why can't I think of his name? Italian actor, and they run a restaurant called O'Malley's Italian Cuisine. I'm not kidding. It's so good.
Okay.
It's so good. Anyway, that's my recommendation for the day. So,
I wrote that down.
Robert Loggia.
yes, Robert Loggia.
Thank God for
Robert
Google.
Loggia. I remember Robert
Oh
Loggia.
my gosh, I love that
Wow,
movie
this
so
cast
much.
is pretty amazing. David Duchovny, Jolie Richardson, Minnie Driver. Wow, that's okay. I got to go check it out.
I love it. Anyway.
You guys were you launched in 1982. 1983 is Scarecrow Mrs. King, and then 85 is Moonlighting.
Right.
Were you aware of those shows? Did you know that?
Oh yeah. And the one that was the predecessor, I won't say she's a legend in her own mind. I won't say that because I really like her a lot, and she was my mother's best friend. But Stephanie Powers.
Yes, Heart to Heart.
Heart to Heart. Heart to Heart was definitely there in the Spectre before we were. It was definitely, something that we followed and we were fully aware. I don't know why we didn't have Steph on the show. I don't know. I don't think she would have done it. And I knew him for so many. He's just such a gracious, lovely man. But that show was before.
Yeah.
That was one that was before.
Yeah. And they talk in the special features about how they pointedly did not let your chauffeur speak because of Heart to Heart, where the chauffeur is the third lead.
Oh, yeah.
Fred. Poor Fred.
That's right. That's right. I did most of the driving too, as I remember.
I love that. You did do a lot of
Yes.
the driving, and I love the pilot where you literally reach over. It's like the golf cart, and you reach. He's in front, and you're in back, and you reach over him to drive the golf cart. And I was like, there it is. That's the metaphor for the show. It's like she's driving. Get out. I don't care whether you're in the front
right.
seat. Laura Holt is
I'm
driving.
the only woman I know now that drives a stick shift. I have a stick shift.
I love a stick shift. I taught my husband to drive a stick shift.
Well, the good thing about it is your car will never get stolen because they can't drive it.
I have to confess, I've never driven a stick shift. I've always had an automatic. But
I fancy myself a race car driver, so I had to get a stick shift.
I'll tell you how I learned to drive a stick shift. Well, of course, I learned from my dad, but Daddy had a 1959 Bentley named Daphne. But that wasn't, Daphne was not. She was automatic. I learned on his Packard, and the Packard was a 1944 Packard.
wow.
Nope. A 1934 Packard because he bought it in 1944. And that's where I learned how to drive a stick shift on a hill, trying to start that car on a hill. And you have to. And my brother would teach me too. He'd have a stick shift, and we'd be on the top of La Cienega where it meets Santa Monica. And there's all this traffic behind you, and you hear all these horns, and you're sliding backwards into the people and you're screaming your head off. So you learn how to use a clutch. You have to. That's where I learned it. That's how I learned it.
That's going into the deep end.
Yep. Yeah.
Just tossed into the deep end of stick shift driving.
The other stick shift story, right behind me where I live, my first mother on television was Shirley Jones.
Aw.
She was my first mother. And I was an idiot then. I didn't know anything. I mean, I knew nothing on this first movie of the week that I did, which, by the way, he told me many years later, because who cares when you're coming out of school, drama school, you get this part, and you're not paying attention to who wrote it. It's a television project. Well, guess who wrote it? Michael Gleason wrote it. Get out! Yeah. It was called Yesterday's Child, and Geraldine Fitzgerald and Shirley Jones and Claude Akins, and the guy was on. Wonderful actors were on that show. It was called Yesterday's Child. And of course, they asked me at the audition, I think, can you drive a stick shift? Oh, yeah, sure. I can drive a stick shift. I could no more drive a stick shift than the man in the moon. I nearly ended up going over a cliff because I couldn't drive a stick shift. But she was a great mom. She was just great to me. She was lovely. I worked with her son, Patrick, and I worked with Piper Laurie on that. We did a little night music the second time I did it. I did Desiree. Isn't it rich? Are we a pair? It was a wonderful role. It was a great role. And I did that with Piper and Patrick. That was great fun. Okay, enough theater. Stop.
Well, again, clearly we have to start the theater podcast. All right. So we do have to do our 3 questions.
Yes.
Is it time?
Okay.
I think it's time.
Okay. What is, and again, you were busy on a TV show, but what is the 80s ladies-driven television show that resonated with you other than Remington Steele? You don't get to say Remington Steele. Robin tried that. We didn't let her.
Let's see. Oh, let's see.
Well, you said one, Heart to Heart.
Heart to Heart. So, my shows that I watched, my big shows, I watched Dark Shadows when I was growing up, and I watched Gilligan's Island all the time. Those are the shows that I watched that I wouldn't miss.
That is so funny. And you guys shot on the Gilligan's Island set.
We did.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
For one of the episodes.
And I know I have stories Walter Matthau told me that I can't even repeat here about the movies. I'm not even going to repeat them.
Come on, you should.
No.
Where else are you going to?
No. But as far as women's shows, geez. I can't. I mean, I was not a great. I mean, Michelle Lee is a darling friend, and she's just great. But I never watched those shows about where they were obviously were 5 hours in hair and makeup. Those shows like Dynasty and all those shows.
Yes,
those ones never interested me because I didn't believe them. I just didn't believe putting that much effort into hair and makeup and costumes. It just, and then trying to be a normal person. It's like I never bought that. That didn't really. So. I mean, I'll tell you what I can do for you, Susan.
Yeah.
If you rattle off about 10 or 12 of them,
okay, you got it.
I will go, that one.
All right, Cagney and Lacey.
Keep going.
Moonlighting. Golden Girls. A Different World, 227.
Kate and Allie?
Kate and Allie is late 80s. So is Murphy Brown. So is, what else we got?
I know what I loved. I loved the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Oh, yes, of course.
We'll allow it. It is technically 70s, but we will allow it because we always allow the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
I loved that show. Loved it. I worked with everyone. I didn't work with Mary. Mary lived just a couple of miles from me here. But Cloris, I worked with. Betty, Betty was great. Betty, oh, see, now I got to do another story. Forget it. But Betty was great. She was wonderful. I did like Cagney and Lacey. I did. I didn't watch it regularly, but I liked it. And I liked Time very much. We had the same agent, I think. I loved the, not Designing Women, but the Golden Girls was very sweet. That was very sweet show. Very dear show. I like that show. Those are the oons that I'd say. Yeah.
So anything with Betty White, we see a pattern.
Yeah, Betty was great. Betty was delightful to watch.
Yeah.
Cagney, Tyne was great.
Yeah.
I used to like Moonlighting. I thought it was very good. It was uneven.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like the stories were kind of lopsy-doodle. They were sometimes in the desire to be funny. Even more than Remington Steele.
Yes.
they kind of went, wait, I lost the thread there. Wait, what is that?
It's been a while since I've seen an episode of Moonlighting, but my recollection is that a lot of times the story, the mystery, whatever you want to call it, suffered at because they were trying to be funny or trying to be more comedic. So, and I like mystery, so I preferred that my mysteries be well told. So, but that's just me.
So I was doing a show called VIPs or something with Pamela
Oh yeah, Anderson.
Oh, right.
On the show, Steve, big TV producer, he was acting in it. He was a huge Steve.
Bochco?
No, not Bochco. Another guy.
Yeah.
Big guy. It was a VIP. Anyway, what was I playing? I was playing, oh, that's right. I was playing a has-been TV actress. How do you like that? And it was great fun. Bobby Canary, I think, was my character's name. I patterned it after a lady who played she played my mother in an Elvis movie, I think I did a long time ago. And this gal was just amazing actress. And so I patterned it after her. Anyway, I'm doing these scenes and I found Pamela was absolutely fabulous, I have to say. What are you doing? She said, it's called texting. What is that? Well, you just take your thumbs and you push the buttons here. But what's happening there? And so she was explaining what texting was, and she was divine. She was so fun. So we'd shoot a master, and then I'd wait and I come back for another angle on the same scene, and she'd be in a different outfit. And this happened a couple of times, and I went to the first and I said, I'm a little confused. We're shooting the same scene. I come back in the same wardrobe, and she comes back and she's wearing a completely different costume. What's going on here? And he said, you have to call this NLR. What's NLR? No logic required. And that was the joke of the show. She never wore the same thing in any shot. It would just be completely different.
I can't imagine.
Oh, okay. Oh, it was hilarious. You'd be in the back seat, and the same thing. She'd be driving, you'd be in the back seat, and then they'd show her again, and she's in a different outfit.
It's like the Cher of TV shows. Oh my
She
God.
was funny, and she was smart. She was really smart. I liked her a lot.
That is funny.
Yeah.
That is funny. All right. And do you have any current TV shows or female-driven TV shows that you're watching?
No, I'm not much of a TV thing.
Them?
I watch
Movies, documentaries, streaming?
I watch a lot of docs, lots of docs. I watch if something gets thrown my way that's a Saturday Night Live skit that is just brilliant, I'll watch that and watch it again and again if it's good. But I'm not much of a TV. There's a lot of there's two reasons, Susan. One is several years ago, I said, I can't tell you how many operas, because I used to go to LA Opera all the time, and I had opera in my background and blah, blah, blah. And I've done a lot of the classical plays, and I've seen the great productions. I've seen amazing things, and I've seen things and I've seen revivals, and I've seen this, and I've seen that. So I don't have a bent to be entertained anymore. I don't need to be entertained. And I also think that the theater in our world is so unbelievably demanding our attention that there's very little room to watch theater that isn't really happening. It takes a great deal of effort to keep up on what the is happening in our world. You have to pay attention. You have to stay alert. And if you're out for entertainment, you're going to be behind. You're just going to be behind and not know what's going on. And you have to know what's going on to make the right decision on what you're going to do. So there we are. It's a different world. It's a very different world. And it's a sad world. And it's a serious world. And that's where we are. So I've said a long time, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm supposed to do on this earth. But the last thing I'll close with is that people ask me, what is your driving force. And I think my driving force that has kept me going is curiosity. Because curiosity leads to love. What you are curious about will lead you down the path to what, as Joseph Campbell says, of what is your bliss. And what is your bliss will lead you to what you love. And that's the only path that we have.
That's fantastic.
That's pretty great. I love that. That's a good wrap up. I feel like I can't ask my third question, which is, what is the
Go
most
ahead.
television
You can move
moment
things
you've had?
That's right.
Like, what is your most like, oh my God, I'm in a television show, which again is weird to ask because you're actually in a television show and you have been in many of them. But like your most real life, like, is this scripted moment? Has this been scripted?
Now, are you saying because of the quality of the people I'm working with, or are you saying because it was so bizarre?
No, I'm saying because you're in a real life situation and you feel like this could be, I am a television show. This is a scripted moment because it's so weird, so bizarre, so action oriented.
So funny.
So
Here's
funny.
one is definitely action oriented. I've got to say, I've never had anything like this happen. So, my hobby for many, many decades, because I had the extra funds to be able to do it. My hobby was to either get in a car or get on a plane and go to New York and see 9 or 10 or 11 or 12, 13 shows. I did it all the time. And I saw, I had to finally throw them. I had so many stacks of playbills. It was ridiculous. I mean, I saw everything, absolutely everything. So I'm in Connecticut and a friend of mine staying with me, and another friend of ours says, you got to see this play. You got to see this play. It's just opening at Playwrights. And again, I should shut up. I don't want to give them a bad thing. Anyway, I was going to see a play in New York that was apparently hot. It was a hot play, and it was a timely play, and it was a political play because it dealt with the left and the right on pins and needles. It talked about the left and it talked about the right. It talked about the left and talked about the right. So we thought, let's go see this. We go to see this play, and the traffic is horrible. It's just terrible. Don't know why. The traffic just stunk. And stupidly, I had noodles right before I went in. And if I have noodles or carbs, it's not good for me. I had managed to get 2 seats in the back row because I know me. And I often will doze. So I decided, okay, I'll just get 2 seats in the back. My friend, who's very savvy, is sitting next to me on the right. We're sitting in the back row. And the new thing about New York theater, at least then, this was back in 2019, they don't light it. It's underlit. The play starts, and also in fashion of people that maybe don't know how to direct a play, they'll have stage left, somebody over there that's sort of lit by a little light. They finish talking. Oops, there's stage right. There's another person over there talking. You go over there and you look stage right. Whoops, person over there on stage left is talking again. Whoop, whoop, over there, stage right. Whoop. And by the time about 8 of these, you're getting exhausted because you're bouncing. And what you're bouncing through is absolute black. There's nothing lit on the stage except this little porch over here and this little picnic table over there. And after a while, I go to sleep. Well, I have many techniques when I go to sleep. I prop my elbows up and I put my fists under my chin so it won't bother anybody. Well, I am awakened, not by a person behind me who takes my shoulder and says, lady, wake up. Oh, no. I'm awakened by being slapped on the side of the head as hard as this person could have done. Whacked me with their hand so that I landed into the shoulder of my friend who I was with. And I was so shocked. I just sat there stunned. I just didn't know what to do. I couldn't even turn around because I knew it would start World War II or III or whatever. So I just sat there with my hands, buried under my chin. And when the play finished, I still couldn't turn around because the audience had been totally captivated by this piece. And I was not going to wreck their moment, as this person clearly wrecked my moment. I did not turn around and look and see who it was. I am convinced to this day, because it was just opening, that it was either the writer or the director.
Oh.
And they were so annoyed because clearly my head was bobbing or something was happening. But that was the worst thing. And I thought, I mean, can you imagine? I thought I'm in a film. This is totally bizarre.
Yeah.
That is insane.
And I have never been to the theater since.
Oh, that makes me sad.
Yeah. That was it. That was it. I wrote to the theater. I told them the story. They never wrote back. They never apologized. They never offered me a couple of seats. They never said, thanks for telling us. All they did was write back about 3 more times asking for money because I paid with my credit card. And I wrote them again and they didn't say anything. And so I'm done. I'm finished. But it's a sad tale to tell. That was a sad tale.
And did your friend go like, what the, like, that's so scary.
I know.
Yeah.
She knew it was happening. At any rate, it's my loss, and it's probably the noodles more than anything else. It's those noodles that did it, but there you go. That's what happened.
But well, I hope that someday you get to go back and watch a play and not feel like you're going to be assaulted.
Yeah,
during
exactly.
it.
Well, it's too bad because it was one of my favorite hobbies. I loved it. I call it a hobby because it's, there was an actor that I knew that Matthew Coles. Matthew was married to Christine Baranski, and Matthew didn't like to go to the theater. And I said, "But Matthew, that's where you learn." "Oh no, I don't. I just don't like to watch actors. It makes me very nervous. I don't like it." He said, "Really? I love to watch actors." And sometimes the worse the material, the more you learn. Sometimes you got to watch it.
Well, maybe you'd feel comfortable going back if you knew that the writer and or director of that piece was not the same writer or director that was at the one that you went to and got whapped upside the head. So
now whapped up, but
you just got to surround yourself with all the people you know. You go in a big group.
I mean, I've had the fire department come and the play is stopped, and I've had chandeliers fall down, and I've forgotten half the play and I had to come back and do it for the audience in the Tea at 5 once. And I said, I left out a whole conversation, and I said to the audience, and they were doing a yak afterwards, I said, "Would you like to see the part you missed?" And they all said, "Yes." So I said, "Okay, you remember the part where I said la la la," and I was on the phone. "Okay, we're going to be kicked up there." And they loved it. They thought it was the greatest thing in the world.
There are so many wonderful theater moments. It is one of the things I truly appreciate now, particularly after COVID, particularly in this time of incredible, and there's incredible stuff streaming, and there's incredible stuff happening. I love so many shows and so many movies now, and yet I find I more appreciate live theater because of that community, because of that sense of you can't fake this. You can be really brilliant on stage with all your bells and whistles, but at the end of the day, you can't fake live theater.
No.
And that is really special to me now.
Mm-hmm.
It was just really fun to laugh with other people.
Yeah.
And to engage with other people and hear everybody sort of gasp in the same places and
it's one of my favorite places to perform, that theater.
Pasadena Playhouse.
Because that theater is so unusual. When you're in an audience there, it seems huge. When you're on stage, it's the tiniest thing in the world.
Oh, wow.
It is so easy to get the audience in the palm of your hand on that main stage at the Pasadena Playhouse. It's phenomenal effect. You're sitting there and you look around and you look at the mezzanine and you look at the thing and you look at the ceiling and you're going, wow. But when you're on stage, it's like a little tiny playhouse.
It's like a little jewel.
It's a jewel. Yeah, it's great.
I live in Pasadena, so Pasadena Playhouse and Boston Court and Noise
Boston
Within
Court
are my fave.
Oh, yeah. I love that director, Jessica, who worked the Boston Court.
I love Jessica.
She's very talented. I've always wanted to work with her. She's very good.
She is.
Yeah, she's very talented. It's a lovely place, Pasadena. It is.
All right.
Look at this. We're over.
We did it. We're over. Thank you for going over with us. And thank you so much.
Oh, yeah.
For joining us. This has been so special and really exciting.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, ladies. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
So in today's audiography, Stephanie Zimbalist fan page is Stephanie Zimbalist fan page on Facebook. Go check it out.
And in honor of Laura Holt, I have a book for you today, Renegade Women in Film and TV by Elizabeth Weitzman with illustrations by Austin Claire Clements. Really cool.
And we're always interested in finding out from you what's the 80s ladies-driven TV show that you remember or have heard of and want us to cover. You can contact us through the website and through social media.
The website is 80stvladies.com. And of course, our social medias are at 80s TV Ladies.
And if you're liking this podcast, please rate and review us. It helps out a lot.
We hope you'll join us for our next episode where we will continue our dive into Remington Steele. And let us know, because we're about to pick our next show. Should we do a comedy, a drama, another detective mystery dynamic duo show? Don't know what that could be, moonlighting. Tell us what show we should explore next at 80stvladies.com.
We hope 80s TV Ladies brings you joy and laughter and lots of fabulous new and old shows to watch, all of which will lead us forward toward being amazing ladies of the 21st century.